And it is Thursday, September 20th, 2018. I'm going to go through each and every NFL Week 3 game that is on the schedule this week. So, going to go through them rather quickly. Last week we did this on Thursday as well. Last week we also did the college football show on Wednesday. This week the college football show is going to be on Friday, and then going forward, this is all going to be in a podcast format going forward each week. So I'm really looking forward to doing the podcast. I have a co-host, Tony, and we're going to have bunches of guests as we go forward. But we're going to do this show every week, and like I said, next week will be in a podcast format. You're going to really, really like the other format. I have a co-host, and so it's not just all Mitch all the time, but you're still going to get all my takes on the games. The format of the show is I just go through every single game on the schedule, so you don't have to like type in a specific game, Texans versus, Redskins or whatever. You don't have to type that in and ask me what my opinion is on that game because we're going through all of them, so you don't even have to worry about it, no sweating it out. I'm going to give out picks on most of these games here, at least my opinion on every single game. Some of these will end up being premium picks. Some of them won't be premium picks. Some of them will be free picks. Some won't be free picks. Some of them I might end up on the other side by the time the game rolls around, or by the time Sunday rolls around, or by the time I put my premium picks. But we will be going forward and doing this each and every week. Now, we have a really cool promotion going on right now with DraftKings. And one thing that, the podcast, I'll have news on it. I'll post it in the Facebook group. I'll have it on the website. I'll have it, there'll be all sorts of information on how to get the podcast. There'll be a series of podcasts. It's not just going to be one show. It's going to be all sorts of podcasts. We'll have a college football podcast, an NFL podcast, a fantasy podcast, probably a couple baseball podcasts a week, at least over the close of the season. We'll have an NBA podcast a couple times a week, college basketball podcast, NHL, you name it, other stuff, boxing. We're going to do it all on our podcast. It's going to be almost like our own podcast network. And, of course, we'll see how that starts. But the name of our show is going to be Sports Pick Info because the person I'm doing with is Tony, and he's not part of Sports Chat Place. But maybe we could tie him in. We'll figure out how to get him wrapped up. I'll go under the Sports Chat label. But for now, it's going to be called Sports Pick Info. But it is going to be part of, for me at least, Sports Chat Place. Anyways, on this show, like I said, we're just going to go through every single NFL game on the board. Let's just recap week 2. It was a week for the dogs, at least as far as covering the point spreads go. And boy, I got backdoored in San Francisco, just like a lot of people did. The week before, I got backdoored on the Steelers, and this week I was backdoored on the 49ers. And that's going to happen to a lot of people. I'm not the sports scientist, that's for sure. There's other guys out there that are sports scientists and sports psychologists and all that stuff. I'm just a guy who watches a ton of football and has been able to put you guys on a lot of winners over the years. Of course, actually this time I'm kind of, I have a little bit of mobility, and I can show you guys my setup here that I have in my house. You can see my TVs right there, getting ready to go for Thursday night, but that's just my setup here in Maui. And but anyways, the DraftKings promotion is if you open up an account at DraftKings, deposit $5. I'm gonna post this in the comments here on YouTube, and you guys will be able to see it. Those of you that are in the Facebook group, I've already posted it there. So let me just get a copy of this. And I will post exactly what you have to do. Pretty easy though. Yeah, this is an awesome deal. You could thank our friends at DraftKings for this one. But basically, you get my $99 5-day premium plus package for $5. That's how this one works. I mean, if you really want to break it down to the nuts and bolts of it, that is how it works. But So I'm going to post it, and let me just get the link there for you. Over. Let's see if I'm still over now. You know what I'll do? I'll just cut this in two. Yep. Okay, so we'll send that one. And we'll send out number 2. There you go. So that's how you do it right there. I think it's only for first-time depositors. You'll have to check the terms and conditions on that. I'm not really sure. Okay, anyways, we'll get back to the DraftKings. We'll definitely need we'll need to take a break at some point during the show. But like I said, we went through. We'll talk about what these NFL teams did last week also on the show, and let's get rolling. We are 6 minutes in. But tonight's game, the Jets and the Browns. I've already talked about this game on our live show today. I gave out a premium pick on both the side and the total on this, and I gave out a free pick on the first half on our earlier show. So we've covered this Jets-Browns game, but let's just remember, you know, when we're looking at trends, looking at things like that, that these are totally different teams and totally different players in the NFL almost year to year. You have different coaches, different quarterbacks, different receivers, different linemen, different almost everything. So very few players hang out for more with an NFL team more than 2 or 3 years at this point. So just keep that in mind when looking at these wagers, and you know, weather always a factor as well. And the biggest factor between this one is these are two teams that haven't really figured out how to win on a consistent basis. So just remember that when you're looking at this game. But let's get to our next game. We've got a real good one. The Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Carolina Panthers. Of course, the Panthers, when they are healthy, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. The Panthers are 3-point favorites in this one. It's a 1 o'clock start in Carolina. You guys know, in Carolina, 1 o'clock start, it can be a little warm there. Now, it's been a warm summer in Cincinnati as well, so the Bengals should be somewhat accustomed to the temperatures, even though it is a sweltering, muggy temperature more in the Carolinas. And one thing we know about that Carolina defense, Luke Kuechly, side to side, you know, linebacker, sideline to sideline, serious pass rush here, and that pass rush creates that pass defense. The Bengals with A.J. Green, you know, of course, now with Ross, who's just a flyer. Couple new dimensions for Andy Dalton. Doesn't give Andy Dalton a better arm than what he has, and that's really what he needs. They call him the Red Rifle. I'm not really sure it's a rifle arm that he has, but the Bengals have started off with 2 wins. They've had a little bit extra time off this week because you got to remember they played on Thursday night. Now, both of their games this season have been 34-23. Both of them. Identical scores, 34-23. Both wins. One on the road at Indy, one at home against the Ravens. 2 teams that their only loss this season, I know they're only 2 weeks in, both of their only losses are to the Cincinnati Bengals. So that makes it, you know, that, hey, they can beat the good teams. Now, the Panthers 16-8 against the Cowboys, and then 31-24 losers at Atlanta in week 2. Now they get back home and they are still healthy. One thing that has plagued the Panthers over the years, by the time they get deeper into the season, they are so banged up. I can only imagine what a Panthers practice is like. These guys hit so hard, they injure themselves. This is going to be a seriously, seriously physical game. This is a game that I will not have a premium pick on, I'll tell you that much. I like the Panthers here. It's a lean, but this is one, and I never do this. I see a lot of other handicappers, they kind of cheese out. They take the money line on games with light spreads like this instead of saying, oh, they can't just beat them by a field goal. But this is one of those games where, I tell you what, This has 1917-ish all over, where it's not like a case where it's like, man, those 3 points are really going to be definitely good for me. And it's not the point where, they're definitely going to beat them by 3 points. I think the Panthers, with that home field edge, I think they wear the Bengals down here. Without Mixon in the backfield for the Bengals, he's out. I think that really hurts them, takes away a little bit of their dimension. I do think they can stretch the field, but can Andy Dalton get enough time to get those deep passes off to Ross and Green? I'm not 100% sold on it. I'll tell you what, I would take the Panthers here on the money line. So I know it's cheesy. It's something I normally don't do. You could probably get it about a minus 125-ish, maybe in that range. And I would take the Panthers on the money line in this game. Our next game, we're going to head to Baltimore, where the Ravens play the Broncos. These teams seem to play each other an awful lot for two teams not in the same division. Of course, the Ravens absolutely convincing in week 1 at home against the Buffalo Bills. The Broncos have pulled off 2 wins in games that they could have easily lost. Both those games were at Mile High. In both those games, we saw that Case Keenum, he ain't much. Okay, I am not sold on Case Keenum. He throws a lob of a pass. Looks more like a Neil O'Donnell acquisition than anything else for the Denver Broncos. And meanwhile, the Ravens, they played on the short week on the road at Cincinnati. I didn't think they looked too good in that game, but I'll tell you, give them a longer time to prepare for this one, kind of like the Bengals had a little bit of extra time. You give the Ravens some extra time. I think here's a team with a coaching staff and a management and with a roster that they could probably do something with that. 5.5 seems like to be a little bit of a big number, but I have to say I'm leaning towards taking the points here. I don't like Case Keenum as quarterback for the Broncos, and I think he makes one too many mistakes. I don't think that the Ravens absolutely smash the Broncos, because that Broncos D is still the Broncos defense. But I'll tell you, I like not a game I feel overly strong about, but it's probably a lean to the Ravens. If this game was in Denver, it might be a lean the other way. That's what I think about this one. Our next game, we got the winless Texans against the winless Giants, 2 0-2 teams. Boy, I was really less than impressed with Odell Beckham Jr. on Monday night or on Sunday night against the Dallas Cowboys. He was a no-show. And in order for this Giant offense to do anything, Odell Beckham Jr. is going to have to create plays and make some of those spectacular catches that we know he can make. He's one of the most athletic receivers in the game. He's certainly the highest paid person in the game, right? So he needs to step up and he needs to be the guy. Manning has to be able to throw the ball confidently to Odell Beckham Jr. in traffic, and he needs to be able to make those catches. He's going to have a chance to take some chances to Odell Beckham Jr. in this game, because that Texans pass rush, especially 0-2, they're home. We know how hot it is in Houston, right? So same kind of deal here. And I'll tell you, I like that Houston pass rush here against the Giants. You guys know, not a Saquon Barkley fan, not even close. Texans laying 6 points in this one, 2.5-point line mover. I like the Texans in this one. I think they absolutely stomped the Giants here to get their first win of the season. I think the Giants are horrible. I thought the Barkley pick was terrible. The next game, we got the Dolphins up against the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders 0-2, the Dolphins 2-0. Of course, the Dolphins were a premium pick last week. Loved them against the Jets. And I tell you, I like them here as well. I don't like the way the Raiders are playing. Hard to get any pressure on the quarterback. They haven't been able to do that. I know the Dolphins' offensive line, hardly world beaters, but the Dolphins' pass rush coming the other way is really good and probably really underestimated. Yeah, I didn't think we'd be saying first place Miami Dolphins anytime in the rest of my lifetime, but here we are saying it. The Dolphins are in first place in the AFC East. I like the way that they're playing football, and I don't like the way the Raiders are playing. I think the Dolphins put the Raiders in those black uniforms at a 1 o'clock game in Miami, talking 100 degrees plus. Going to be a miserable day to be an Oakland Raider. Our next game, the Buffalo Bills, have looked pretty hapless this season. They're playing up against the Minnesota Vikings inside the Dome. Generally a tough building to play in to begin with, and you throw in that Minnesota defense, well, not going to get any easier for them. I tell you, this one looks like a one-sided game on paper, and my guess, it's going to be a one-sided game on the field. The Vikings coming off of that tie last week at Green Bay, and I don't think they're going to be in a very good mood. We know that the Vikings are tough at home. I know this is a gigantic spread for an NFL game, but that's just how bad the Buffalo Bills have been this season. Just want to recap for everyone that's joining us late. We have an awesome promotion going on with DraftKings right now. I put the link in the comments. If you click on that link and deposit $5 to play DraftKings this week, you get my $99 5-day Premium Plus membership absolutely free. So it's $5 for $99. That's 100% courtesy of our friends at DraftKings. How awesome, awesome, awesome is that? I mean, it's like you guys get premium picks, plus you get $5 that you put at DraftKings. Plus, I'm pretty sure, I think they have a deposit bonus on that as well. So, can't beat that with a stick. Anyways, let's get to this rivalry game. We got the Atlanta Falcons up against the New Orleans Saints. Two teams 1-1 coming in. The Saints got lucky to get that win against the Cleveland Browns. Browns left 8 points on the shelf in that thing. The Saints won by 3. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Falcons, they are looking mighty tough. After losing their opener at Philly, which we have to forgive them for, they came back and beat a very physical team in the Panthers. The thing is about this one, it's a rivalry game and anything can happen. I gotta say, I think the Saints get on the board here and I think they get the win over the Falcons, or at least cover the spread. I think this one's gonna be super, super tight. And I expect the Saints, I either like them to get the win or the cover. I don't like teams coming off games against the Carolina Panthers too much, as you end up getting pretty bruised in those Panthers games. I said it last year, I'll say it again this year. The Panthers, they leave it all out on the field, and it's got to leave a mark, going forward. And the Falcons, they might have got that win against the Panthers, but let's just say they paid the price. Got Andrew Luck and company with the Indianapolis Colts visiting the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles coming off of that hideous performance over at Tampa Bay last week where they were shellacked. They looked terrible, and they were never in that game. The Bucs scored on the first play from scrimmage, a bomb to Deshaun, oh boy, what's his even name? You guys, Deshaun Jackson, right? The guy who used to play for Cal. Deshaun Jackson with the big bomb on the very first play, and the Bucs never looked back. The Eagles could not get back into the game. Meanwhile, Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles takes the bench this week as Carson Wentz is back. That should be enough to propel the Eagles. I expect it to be a raucous crowd in Philly for Wentz's welcome back to the field, and too bad for the Indianapolis Colts who go outside of the dome for this one. I know they won last week in Washington, but it's back-to-back games on the road. Never really a good thing for NFL teams to be back-to-back on the road. Head to Jacksonville where the Jaguars take on the Titans. The line in this one is 6.5, but I've seen this game as high as 9.5, and that is in the Super Contest. They have the Jags as 9.5-point favorites over the Titans. I took the Titans last week over the Texans. It was not a popular pick on my live show, but I really like the way that the Titans have been playing. Marcus Mariota is day-to-day with the elbow. I think the problem here is not really Marcus Mariota or this injury list that's 1.5 miles long for the Titans. I think the problem here more for them is this Jaguar defense. I just really love teams that play defense first. The Jaguars do that. At 6.5, I gotta say that it's more of a lean to the Jaguars, even though it's a divisional game. So laying more than 5 is always tough inside the division. But I do like the Jaguars defense. I think this one is going to be a defensive game. The total is set at 39.5. Ooh, I think it's going to be right around in that range. I think it's going to be in the mid-30s. Anyways, we got the Chiefs up against the 49ers. The 49ers screwed me last week. I had them. They were covering the whole way, and then they let the Detroit Lions score a couple late touchdowns on them to backdoor them for the cover. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, I badmouthed the Patrick Mahomes pick, guilty as charged, and sure enough, he has proved me wrong. I just have to watch him play one time like that, and I can tell you, this guy is the real deal. I've seen guys in the NFL throw a ball like that before, and those guys end up being superstars if they can remain healthy. This guy has got all the tools. I'd say look out on defense. Thing is that the 49ers have a chance to keep this one close. It's kind of like what they did against the Vikings, where they kind of hung around. I expect them to it to be a little bit of a track meet. The total in this one is set at 55.5. I'm going to go with the over in the Chiefs-Niners game. Our next game, Washington Redskins hosting the Green Bay Packers. The Redskins coming off a really bad loss at home against the Colts in a game that, boy, they should have won that game. They were the better team, but they were never really in it. Meanwhile, the Packers -3 in this one, and going on the road. Aaron Rodgers, obviously healthy, and Aaron Rodgers being healthy, well, it's a good Packers team. I think the problem here for the Pack is the Redskins are just going to out-physical them, and I like the physical teams, especially at home. I'm going to take the Washington Redskins, and this is another game. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Washington, D.C. at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but in the warmer months, but it is usually pretty damn hot. I'm going to go to our next games. We have the later games on Sunday. Going to take a 2-second break here and just talk quickly again about our partnership with DraftKings. DraftKings is saying if you guys click on the link that I put in the comments here, I also put the link on the website as well as in our Facebook group. You deposit $5. They'll pay for your they'll pay for your $99 5-day premium plus membership. Pretty cool, and I hope thousands of you take advantage of it, personally. Anyways, let's get to our next game. We got the Rams and Chargers in the Battle of Los Angeles. The thing I've heard about the Chargers is that if the fans didn't drive from San Diego to the games, they'd have nobody at their home games. Meanwhile, the Rams, they look to be a team that if you're trying to build a fan base and try and build some buzz, they seem to be ready, and they definitely, to me, look like a Super Bowl contender at this point. The total in this one is set at 48, but I don't know. No one has really been able to put any points on the board, so unless the Rams are going to score 48, which I don't see them doing against that Charger defense, and I don't see it happen. I like under 48 in the Rams-Chargers game. We got the Seahawks taking on the Cowboys. Seahawks finally get home after 2 games on the road. 0-2 to start the season, and this team looks to be in a little bit of a mess. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, which Cowboys team do we see? The one that couldn't move the ball against the Carolina Panthers, or the one that kind of struggled to move the ball against the New York Giants? The Cowboys' offense isn't very good this season, but their defense looked to be okay in that one. It's a 1.5 in this one. Seattle, I don't know. I like the under in this one too, 41.5, at least at this point. Our next game, the Cardinals up against the Bears. The Cardinals getting 5.5 points at home, 0-2 to start the season. The Bears, I have to tell you, might be one of the more overrated teams in the NFL. This is going to be a lousy game. These are 2 lousy teams. The Bears' offense just absolutely inept. Khalil Mack can play 30 minutes of football. And, the rest of the Bears, they can tackle pretty well. Sam Bradford, how does he not get the bust label for a #1 overall pick at quarterback? I'm not really sure how that works out. But we're getting 5.5 points here with an Arizona Cardinal team that is yet to get a win. I'm not sure if they get a win here, but I think they're going to cover with 5.5 points. Our next game, the New England Patriots up against the Detroit Lions. Teacher meets student. Student meets teacher. Matt Patricia up against Bill Belichick. The total in this one set at 53.5. Oh boy, man, I don't know what's up with that, but that seems to be a ton of points. I'll tell you one thing, I'll take the Patriots to beat think about this, all right? You got the Detroit Lions, okay? They're 0-2. I know they're home. I know it's a night game. I know it's the Patriots in town, but that's the pretty much the gist of it. But anyways, I'm gonna take the Patriots here. I'm gonna lay the points. Our last game, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's Monday Night Football. The Bucs, 1.5 favorites at home, moved a point in their direction. This game opened with Pittsburgh as a 2.5 point favorite in this thing. Now they're just 1.5 point favorites. Why is that? Well, the Steelers have been really, really awful. Like I said last week about the Steelers, and I said this in the premium area when we took the Chiefs against them, and I took the Chiefs on the money line as well personally. It's the problems with the Steelers didn't start, with Le'Veon Bell holding out or any of those things. The problem with the Steelers, we saw them last year when they played the Jaguars twice. Once the script is out on how to beat you, then you need to be able to do something different. And the Steelers just haven't been able to do that. Ben Roethlisberger is still taking a beating in the pocket. And, if the Bucs beat the Eagles last week, if they could defeat the defending Super Bowl champions, then you could beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know the Steelers get a ton of calls, so we got to watch out and tread lightly in this one. But right now, it's just a lean to the Tampa Bay Bucs. Anyways, it's going to wrap up today's show. There's not going to be a recap of every single game. You could recap by rewatching the entire show. It'll be out there on YouTube for you to watch. You'll have days to do so. Anyways, this is Mitch. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to do an entire college football show, and we'll do it again at 6 o'clock Eastern time here at YouTube. Of course, starting next week, you'll be able to get these shows in podcast form. I won't be doing them live, at this time anymore. I'll have all of that stuff over at Sports Chat Place as well as in our Facebook group. This is Mitch. Thanks for joining me. I enjoyed talking NFL with you. Kind of my chance to go through the games. It's been a busy week for me, so I haven't really got to look at this card too much. But, of course, I'm up for talking NFL all day and all night long. I'll see you guys in the Facebook group.